lack of knowledge, or lack of willpower. Which is worse? Ignorance can be corrected, but someone who understands and refuses to act is much harder to save. Why does the internet reward hate? Is it because ridicule is easier than understanding? Instead of learning about each other's circumstances, we glorify tearing each other apart. Let me ask you a question that shows up in every story. What part of us is still human, and what part of us has become something else? The human part, the sound of life, the quiet rhythm of a beating heart, the stubborn baseline of human struggle, the anti, something that is no longer a who, but a what, a force that abandons humanity in pursuit of something greater. In this video, I want to explore the line between being human and becoming something else, and why some people remain human while others abandon it completely. There's only one story that explores this better than almost anything else. Let me introduce you to Berserk. On the surface, Berserk looks simple. A huge angry man with a bigger, angrier sword. He uses this sword to fight a beautiful, girlfriend man. But like angels and devils alike, nothing here is what it seems. Because the person that doesn't have to show their good side might be human, but the person that seems almost too perfect fails the task. In some regards, you could draw a similar conclusion about people like Mr. Beast. Fame can push someone beyond being human and turn them into a symbol. Was Griffith wrong? That's one of the most argued questions on the internet, and everybody would agree that he was. So, why does this question matter? If it has such a simple answer, why is it still debatable? How does it feel to lose everything you ever had and then get offered an exponential growth beyond everything you could imagine? Would the consequences of this action matter? Or did we reach a point of no return where we either choose to win or we choose to lose? Yes, this video is actually about gambling. And we are sponsored by Raid Shadow. Really? Did you fall for that? Well, anyways, my point was, I find it interesting that a lot of stories have 3 levels of villains. The good, a villain who is actually the hero in the story, because the main character was the antagonist all along. The gray, where a villain doesn't become evil of their own choice, but a victim of their circumstances. You can think about Joker. The third one would be the cartoonish evil. Someone who is evil for the sake of being funny or chaotic. Ambitions like, I wanna take over the world, but I don't care to be a king. You can think about Dio Brando from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. In fiction, everything is easy. We have the villains, the heroes, and the people fighting for their own personal reasons. But in real life, it's really not that simple. Hate, the feeling of intense dislike for someone or something. Do we hate because it's easy? When someone stumbles and falls, it's easy. When someone stumbles and falls, it's easy to laugh. Someone stumbles and falls. It's quite easy to laugh, but it's hard to actually understand. Reality is not fiction, and some stumbles mean way more than others. The more risk you take, the higher the chance of failure becomes. A current internet trend is to try to lower your cortisol. If you have seen the meme, it's about lowering the stress hormone. And maybe having low cortisol is not a good thing, because then you take life at face value and you let something else run your mind. It's like throwing away the keys to your own head and then wondering,
your hands around my waist, just let the music play. We're hand in hand, just to trust them now. We're head for
Bingo, bango, bongo, bish, bash, bosh.
Right? I tell you about it, I always hate we went down
where you are. Hate can be a two-way street. People can hate and ridicule someone because they did something dumb. People can hate or ridicule someone because they did something dumb, or because they tried and failed, something that was risky. And on the other side of the spectrum, it doesn't get better, because we can also hate and envy a person who risked a lot, and won that risk. And then you ask yourself, why do I envy their success? And ask, why not me? Why not you? Have you ever heard about the man in the arena?
Why do you care what other people say and think when they're not the ones who can do what you do? They're not the ones who toil greatly and see great failure and great success.
Let's talk about the law of averages. Most of humanity lives here. Civilization works because most people are average. Average strength, average wealth, average talent. The system would collapse if everybody would go into the extreme. This is basically the quiet rule of society. Extremes destabilize the average. Example. If everyone was a billionaire, money stops meaning anything. If everyone were a genius, intelligence stops being valuable. If everyone were a monster, society stops existing. So humanity lives in the middle zone. That's where empathy, cooperation and community survive. And that's where Guts exists. He represents the average human struggle. He's an extreme of he's not average in strength, but emotionally he represents a very human struggle with pain, persistence, loyalty, rage and survival. He suffers but keeps going, and that's human. And now I would like to pivot to the other extreme, the mentality of excess, where the inhuman begins. Now take someone who moves beyond the average curve. Money, power, beauty, talent. At extreme levels, something changes psychologically. When someone has an overwhelming advantage, social approval becomes irrelevant. They don't need validation, permission, or consensus. They just act. This creates the mentality of excess. And that's Griffith. Griffith doesn't live inside the average system. He bends it to whatever he wants it to be. Now, to determine who is actually right instead of just following the status quo, you can think about country economics, how a $5 bottle of wine can be $5 in the local region. Because you can't sell it for more to the people that can see the vineyards in the backyard. But overseas, you can sell the same wine for $500. Because you can brand it as luxury while it's still the same wine. You can take this, it's also very context heavy. A poor person, $50 wine is a luxury, but for a millionaire, a $50 wine is a random day. That's why value is objective. It's relative to the person experiencing it. This matters because when someone reaches extreme wealth or power, normal human concerns shrink. Again, that's Griffith. His dreams are so large that soldiers, friends, kingdoms become tools, no longer humans. Let's talk about Guts' sword. Guts has had a few swords over the years, but his main sword now, the Dragon Slayer, he hasn't changed in a long time. That is the professional mindset, where you find your tool and you use it until it breaks. Now, the collector would be Griffith. He wants more tools, many more tools. He's obsessed with owning. He needs status, he needs to display it, he needs it for identity. That is his castle. Griffith isn't human anymore because he rejects human limits. He rejects loyalty and humanity itself. To reach his dream, he abandons the system of averages. He becomes something outside humanity, quite literally. Humanity may not be defined by strength. The average person wakes up every day with limits, pain, and responsibilities, and keeps going. That's the quiet persistence, a real human story. Not perfection, no transcendence, just stubborn survival, which is why Guts resonates with people. He represents the most human thing possible, continuing when life is unfair.
Heed my words, struggler. Soon a rain of blood, the likes of which you cannot imagine, shall fall down upon you. It will be a storm of death. But take heed, struggler. Struggle, endure, contend, for that alone is the sword of one who defies death. Do not forget these words.
It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better.
Okay.
The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who, what?
You said who comes short, so I said premature ejaculation.
But does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls
Never.
who neither know victory nor defeat.
Cold and timid souls. That's a hard line right there.
That's king. You know what? I think of that and I just see, oh, well, that's Twitter. Well, that's the YouTube comment section. Well, that's anybody who throws those fucking stones. So
You know what I got to do?
Art, I'm getting a fuck ton of emails, and it's not reasonable for me to respond to them all on the show. I will try my best to respond to everything, though, whether it be in an episode of Inbox or just if I send you an email back. So thank you so far, and let's get started. Best way to get cum out of mechanic... You know what? Never mind.
No matter what, don't stop trying. See ya.